I have stayed silent for 14 years, and I am now about to expose the father of my child, who is living a complete and total lie in Oceanside, California. Little backstory, I met my son's biological father in 2008. We went to high school together, and we started dating pretty much immediately after we met each other. For the sake of keeping this all in one part, I'm going to skip 2008 to 2010 because in all reality, it was nothing but him cheating on me and me being a fool and taking him back, so I really don't think that's an entertaining story to tell. In 2011, I found out I was pregnant, and it took him all of 24 hours to leave me. Within 2 weeks, he was dating somebody else. We had absolutely zero communication between the two of us, and I had just accepted the fact that I was going to be a single mom. When I was a little over 2 months pregnant, he reached out to me and told me how much he missed me, how much he wanted to be back with me, that he felt terrible for leaving me, and that he broke up with his girlfriend and he wanted to come back. So I allowed him to come to my apartment. I was a fool and forgave him once again. He stayed the night with me. Everything went great. The next day he left. He said, "I'm gonna go get all my stuff and I'm gonna come right back." I ended up getting a message from him later that night saying that he actually didn't break up with his girlfriend, which if I had known that, I never would have even engaged in an overnight stay with him. But moral of the story, he told me that he couldn't leave her because he found out he was getting something really good from her father for Christmas, and her father worked at the fire department and was potentially going to get him a job, so he just couldn't imagine leaving her. Again, we went no contact. Then I had my appointment to find out the gender of our child. Found out it was a boy, so I messaged him. And the only reason I messaged him is because I wanted to make sure I was doing everything right. And to this day, 14 years later, I have done everything right. I have not left things out that could be used against me at a later date. So I told him the gender. I'm not going to say what he responded back with because it was diabolical. After that day, the only texts that he sent me were just mean, threatening, psychotic messages that I ignored. On June 6, 2012, I went into labor, and as I said before, I wanted to do everything right and not have anything that could be held over my head or used against me later. So I messaged him immediately. I went into labor a little after 11 a.m., messaged him, and then I put my phone up. I had a friend that was there with me, keep in contact with him the entire time. She was messaging him, updating him. There was zero response to me and zero response to her. I ended up giving birth at 6:16 p.m. with 3 of my best friends and my mom in the room. Later that evening, I got a message from one of his friends, and he said, "Hey, I wanted to know how late visiting hours are because the guys and I want to come meet Noah." It just gets to me because that was so sweet. So all of his friends came to the hospital around 11 p.m. The nurses okayed it, and they all held his son before he did and sat with me for over an hour. The next day, I had more of my family come, and then his mother came, and she explained to me that the reason he couldn't be there for the birth, they found out he was at another girl's house, so he was just intentionally ignoring the messages so that he could hang out with the girl he was with. The following day was the day I was getting discharged, so it was a couple hours before they told me I could go home, and his dad finally made him come. So his dad, and his little brother came. He held our son. He kept saying how he felt like he was looking in the mirror. He said he looks just like me, and I mean, truly, he looked like he was happy. So there was a glimmer of hope that maybe he would change. That hope did not last long because as he was getting ready to walk out of the room, he looked at his crib card and immediately messaged me, cussing me out, asking why our son had my last name and not his. I messaged him back and nicely told him if he was going to be a part of his life, I had no issue changing his last name. The only reason I made it my last name was because he wasn't there the entire pregnancy, and he wasn't there when I gave birth, nor was he there to sign the birth certificate. This leads to the beginning of the end. After I got home with our son, he messaged me offering to come over and stay the night to help with him. I was so excited, and I thought, okay, maybe he truly is going to be a part of his life. The very next day, he took me out to my front porch, sat me down, and he just said, I'm too young to be a dad. I'm not ready to be a dad. I have goals and dreams of my own that I want to accomplish. He'll be better off without me. And I'm not gonna lie, midway through the conversation, I just kind of blacked out because I had already been through so much. And if you think this is a lot, you should imagine what went on in the 2 years that I left out of this conversation. So I just looked at him and said, okay. We were once again back to no contact, and I think when you become a mom, something in your brain changes. There's this certain maturity that comes, there's a certain fight that comes inside of you where you realize you don't need a partner and you are just fine standing on your own. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. And so I was fully content in the situation that I had. My son's biological father, however, was not content because we live in a very small town and word travels very fast. So him being a piece of shit was really catching up to him, and it was interfering in him getting girls. So the girls were picking up on the fact that you abandoned your baby, you abandoned your girlfriend. And the funniest part of it all is I have stayed in my own little world throughout this whole experience, and for the last 14 years, people go out of their way to message me things about him, to send me things about him, to update me on things about him that I never asked for. But the fact that people care about this that much, it's... Gotta love small town Ohio. So then his story changed to she keeps my son from me. And I had to shut that one down real quick because anyone who wasn't anyone knew that that was the furthest thing from the truth. So I messaged him and I said, would you like to see your son? Nothing. I waited a couple days, messaged again. Would you like to see your son? Nothing. Waited a couple weeks, messaged again. Would you like to see your son? Nothing. A couple months later, he messaged me asking to see him. I was supposed to work that day. I took off of work. That's how important it was for me for my son to have his father in his life. I took off of work, called off last minute, drove to his parents' house just how he asked. Nobody was there. So I messaged and I just asked nicely, do you know what time you're gonna be home? He said, change of plans, not gonna happen. And that was the last time we spoke. But here's where it gets real good. I was messaged by a friend. It was a picture of him joining the Marines. This was a few years later, by the way. Which was funny because you have to sign a government document when you join any form of force stating whether you have children. And if you do have a child and you're not with the mother, you are legally required to pay child support, which I never took him for. So in that moment, I knew within one phone call, I could potentially get him dishonorably discharged because he lied on a government document. But I never did that. I never filed for child support. I never did anything. I protected him, I think, just as much as he was protecting himself. Go to part 2.